Today we have Dennis with us.
Hello, hello.
I hope everybody's doing good this morning. It's kind of cold, but other than that, it's not too bad of a Saturday morning, weather-wise. They
I
can't.
think it's
Oh, okay, I
a
was gonna
bit
say
too
they can't
cold.
hear you nod your head, but we don't know what happened to Angelina this morning. I know she's had a crazy week, so either something's come up that she's really busy, or she decided to sleep in and forget all about us, which I couldn't blame her. So we didn't get on last week because she had basketball back to back with the boys. I had things I was doing. Plus, this is kind of becoming the two-person show here. For me to get on by myself would be kind of ridiculous. Nobody would want to hear that. There's nobody to banter with. So week before last, it was we. I told you we were going to come back with some concerns and questions about things that should be taken or should not be taking place in our schools. Dennis, how long have you been out of school now?
I graduated in 2010.
So 13
So,
years.
yeah.
No, well, yeah, almost 14. Wow. I should never ask you that because now I feel old. For those that don't know, Dennis happens to be my middle child. Uh, I don't when it comes down to school, there's so many different things that can take place. There's so many things that people think should take place that really shouldn't have to. All that good stuff. It's all definitely controversial. It doesn't matter what the question is or how you look at it. So let's start with something easy. Should homework be banned?
No, not in its entirety anyway.
Do I think they can lighten up a little bit on homework?
Definitely, I think so.
And like I said, you are my middle, and it's almost 14 years that you've been out. But I remember the struggles and the days I felt like I couldn't let you guys go be kids because you were bogged down with homework on top of what you just already sat in school and did.
Right. Let's see. My feelings on that is, the parents of kids need to have some involvement in their children's studies.
Correct.
But the way that some of these teachers are working with homework, they're almost entirely teaching their children, if at all. Like I think it's more difficult for the parents to teach the kids, especially in subjects like math, simply because um, the way that they're teaching math is changing. The math is always the same; it never changes. But the way that they're teaching it is changing. Like
Yep.
I forget what
Common
they call it
Core.
now.
Common Core
Core.
math. I've seen
Yeah,
it. It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Like they're teaching the long way around to get to specific answers. When even from the time that I went through school, it's completely different. And if I had kids, I would not be able to help them with their math homework.
But here's my take on it. You have a kid that's sitting in school. What is it? 6 to 8 hours a day.
Somewhere's around in there, yeah.
Then they have to come home and sit. So they have no time to go out and be a child and burn off some of that energy that they just stored up sitting in school all day.
Hmm.
The parents' time is spent with them. Do your homework, do your homework, do your homework. There's no bonding time, no getting to know your children getting to know you and why you are. And I really think that's all an important part of growing up and a way to bond with your parents and
Yeah,
your parents to get to know you. I mean, I could just see, well, you go to school and they're like, you don't know your kid. I don't know because he comes home, we eat, and he does homework all night long. He doesn't have time to talk. So,
exactly.
simple homework, absolutely. I mean, even today as an adult, there's times I come home and I, the boss would still message me or something like that. It's part of life. It's what you need to expect. But if I just worked all day and then my boss is messaging me or calling me for another 8 hours, I'm going to be whooped. Who's going to want to go in the next day and do anything?
Yeah,
And it's the same way for school. And you want to keep these kids interested. You don't want them giving up. And if they have to do it this way and they feel defeated all the time, they're going to give up.
exactly. I mean, like, I felt defeated on a few occasions at least, uh, mostly with math, um, because I having ADD, I lacked the ability to force myself to concentrate, um, and of course, as a somewhat obstinate kid, I just didn't want to do it in the first place either,
Right.
which didn't help matters any. So, with learning disabilities becoming more and more, um, not prevalent, with people becoming more and more aware of learning disabilities, ADD, ADHD, autism, it, those disabilities are being found at earlier ages,
Yes.
which is a good thing.
Yeah, because then
Or
you know how to work with them. You know how to
exactly,
engage.
exactly. But I think a lot of the issue, uh, with the homework and everything, stems from, a big portion of it, uh, teachers being basically forced to teach schoolrooms chock full of kids. Like that there was a day that one teacher had maybe 15 to 20 students at most.
Right. Now they're getting 30 to 40.
Exactly. And there's no opportunity anymore for one-on-one education unless you've got a severe disability like autism. And in my case, um, I needed some of that one-on-one teaching for a while, uh, mostly to help me learn how to be able to cope with my ADD and to be able to, uh, learn how to concentrate better. Because I mean that's the biggest, um, symptom, I guess, of ADD is, the inability to, um,
Focus.
completely focus on a singular task. Even today, my brain runs miles a minute, and I'm on one task, and then I start thinking, oh, well, this needs to be done too. So I go and run over and do that and completely forget about the first task I was working on. I can't tell you how many projects I've started and never finished because I lose my focus because I'm distracted by something else. So being able to have that one-on-one education is, I think, um, key with each and every student. It doesn't have to be a massive amount of one-on-one, but there has to be some one-on-one, which I don't think is entirely available simply because the teachers are inundated with more students than they can have one-on-one time with.
Right. And I'm going to say this too to any teacher that might be listening. If you have a student come to you and say, "I don't understand this," and you continuously explain it the exact same way, and they're still looking at you dumbfounded and saying, "I don't understand this," you need to find another approach.
Now, what is that, saying? Uh, I forget it. But it's something about, um, doing the same thing the same way time and time again, expecting a different result,
Right.
is
So
the definition of uh, um, something. I forget what word.
I might sound dumb here for a minute, but I go into my high school years, my freshman year. I get this math teacher and I just took general math, that I swore spoke another language because I couldn't understand a word he had to say. Every time I would ask him, what is this? I don't understand what you're saying. It was a repeat of what he already said. It was almost like it was programmed in his brain. Needless to say, I failed my freshman math. Next year, I go into it dreading it because I'm going to have the same man. I had a man that was wonderful. I aced my freshman math. And so, therefore, I should have aced it the year before.
Yeah,
So, please, if you have a student not understanding, work with them until you find a way where they can. Because not, and a lot of these students can't even go home because both mommies and daddies have to work. So they're stuck trying to
yeah,
figure this out on their own. Or mommy and daddy's lost too because this is all new to us. So, all right, so now let's move on to public prayers in school. Where are we on that topic?
oof. So, um, I was fortunate enough to be raised by you, who felt um, that religion was my own undertaking. Um, yeah, I mean, you were open about religion, and were willing to discuss different aspects of different religions, at least as far as you knew about them
Right.
anyway. Um, and thankfully, because of that, I still have um, an eager mind when it comes to different religions that I don't know about. Um, I want to learn about different religions and um, oh, what's that word? Uh, cultures.
Okay,
Um,
I was wondering, but yeah,
but anyhow, in the school, unless it is a school solely based on religion, such as Catholic schools,
correct.
um, and I mean even Amish schools can be included in that, even though um, English people um, typically aren't going to the Amish schools. Um, but in public education, should there be teachings on um, various religions to some degree? I think so. But should it be to the point where you're actually having your students uh, um, pray to a god that they might not believe in? No, I don't think. Basically, what I'm getting at is the teachings can be about um, the different deities that different religions follow, um, or about different cultures. Like Christians celebrate Christmas, where in Judaism they don't. They celebrate Hanukkah.
Well,
So
I think it's Seventh Day Adventist. I think it's that doesn't celebrate the holidays. So
something. Yeah.
there's
So
a young boy I knew him, and I mean his mother was a fabulous lady. I knew her too. But instead of keeping him home the day of the parties that he wasn't allowed to partake in, he had to go sit in the office and look just just sad.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean, honestly, if you don't believe in this kind of stuff and you know it's happening, take your kids home for the day.
right.
I mean, that
Uh,
was really sad. I mean, he could have partaked in that without acknowledging what it was,
exactly.
it was just basically social time, fun time.
You know, eh, Time that could be spent, especially as a young child, uh, socializing with his peers and learning about himself.
Right.
That's a big part of schooling and uh, childhood is learning about yourself and how you are, how you interact with people, what's appropriate, what's not.
Mhm.
And in my opinion, forcing a child to, in that case, sit in the office during a school party is entirely inappropriate.
It
That's
just it totally made him
isolation.
an outcast.
Exactly.
You know, and
Exactly.
at the time I was working at the school, so of course people were giving me goodies. I went to give him some because I felt so bad. He's like, Bonnie, I'm not allowed to have that stuff.
Mm,
Because, like I said, I knew him, when he was a young child. So, uh, here's what I know. As a child, I was taught the church is open. If you want to go, you go. If you don't, that's fine too.
mhm.
We spoke about God in our house, which is probably where I got it for you. I have been Baptist, Methodist, Catholic, Pentecostal. Now, when it comes down to any kind of worshiping, I prefer the Pentecostal style. But as you know, I have two children that really went the Baptist way.
Mhm.
Two different affiliations for me. One, I really don't agree with the majority of what they say, but you did. It was your convictions that had to pull you up out of there.
Yep.
So I wouldn't want somebody who I don't know what beliefs they have, what religion they are, anything like that. I wouldn't want them hounding my child.
Right.
So, one thing I do think a while back, a young man, he was raised, you pray, before every class. And he was actually ridiculed for it. He got punished at school for it. That should not be allowed. He wasn't praying out loud. He wasn't disturbing anybody. He should have been left alone.
Right.
Okay, so should schools block sites like YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram on their computers?
Facebook and Instagram, I think so.
And why not YouTube?
YouTube, while being social media, in the same light of Facebook and Instagram, I believe is a great teaching tool. Um, I still learn a ton on YouTube. Um, whether it be uh, at least now learning how to work on different issues with cars, or uh, look at other aspects of life. There's tons of videos that people have done on um, medieval times. Lately, I've been watching videos. This guy, uh, um, uh,
I just sent him a message, so he's reading.
oh,
Here's my opinion.
anyhow,
YouTube is not needed in school. It's not. I I do believe these three things should be banned. If it's not scholastic related, I mean, how many kids are going to the library saying, now I got to do this or that, or on their laptops and they're sitting there watching the video, getting a good laugh?
well, see, here's another reason that I believe that YouTube is actually a good tool. Um, like we were speaking on earlier, uh, teachers not being able to explain something in a way that a student can understand. Somebody else might have already done that on YouTube, whether it be writing um, an English paper in whatever format the English teacher's requiring. They can learn that format off of YouTube if the teacher's not explaining it in the right way. Or with math, there's tons of math videos on YouTube to explain how to properly solve an equation in a different manner than what the teacher might have explained, and still arrive at the correct answer.
Okay, well then on that note, for every class that you go to, you really should know rules because there's going to be teachers that will discipline you for that. because it is not part of the school curriculum.
See, that's another topic that I'm really against as well. With the whole Common Core math thing, um, I've heard of students being disciplined or receive failing grades because their parents taught them how to do the same equation in a different way and achieve the correct answer. But even though they've gotten the correct answer, because they did it a different way from what they were taught, because they didn't understand it and their parents
It's
tried to help
wrong.
them.
I had that problem with you actually. You weren't understanding. I taught you the way I was taught.
Hmm.
You had the right answer, but you had the wrong method. And
Exactly.
it was an issue, and you were actually called stupid by the teacher over that, by the way.
Mm.
Y'all put her name out there, Mrs. Leonard.
But yeah, I mean, like I was saying though, it's a great teaching tool if used in an appropriate manner, and I think that's where um, it can be helpful, but in the same light, it can really hurt as well, because I mean, let's face it, there is a lot of misinformation in social media.
Right. But we do have to disagree on that. I really do think they should all be banned. Banned and blocked. So, what about school uniforms? Let me tell you. I went to Catholic school, and I hated uniforms. Mine was a dress. That was actually a time that I didn't mind winter because I got to wear pants instead of the dress.
Hmm.
Yeah. In public schools, no. It was, the whole thing was we get these kids dressed the same. It's going to stop the ridicule. It's going to stop the teasing. No, it doesn't. Because those same kids might come and dress just like mine, but they're wearing Nikes and Jordans and whatever.
Hmm.
Their glasses are the glasses you go spend $1,000 on, or they got the AirPods, they got the new phones. There's always a form. There's
Yeah.
always something that says, I am better than you. So, uniforms to me are dumb. I think you should let your kid go to school and be as comfortable as they can be, especially if they are in a situation of being teased or whatever. Hang on, I got something blocking my screen here, and I'm trying to use two. I was going to say mices, but I'm trying to use two. And it still won't go away, and I'm not left-handed, so this is taking me a second. But yeah, I don't know. I just think uniforms should be left alone.
Yeah. To an extent, I like uniforms. But in schools, especially early childhood education, um, it's not needed. Um, I mean, K through 12, there's no need for uniforms and teaching. Because um, to me, uniforms teach the students and the children conformity.
Okay, but what about parents that can't afford them? I don't know if you remember or not, but every year, your first day of school, I would take the day off. We made a big deal out of it.
Hmm.
I could walk in that school and look at the children and know who had new clothes and who didn't.
Right.
So right there's your telltale sign of this poor baby wasn't able to get new clothes this year.
Right.
So what difference? I mean, what are you conforming? His pants are from last year, or bought at the Goodwill. They're stained. They're just mom did the best that she could.
No, that's what I'm saying is uniforms. Forcing students to wear uniforms K through 12 teaches the students um, conformity. That basically they need to conform to societal standards, where and that's why I disagree with uniforms, because societal standards are constantly changing. So why are we teaching our kids that we have to conform to societal standards, and everything like that, when we don't even know what the societal standard is?
All
I
right.
mean, we know that we shouldn't curse in public.
But some do.
It's relative, common sense. Rude language in public is going to offend somebody. But me wearing this hoodie that is going to keep me warm on a chilly day can offend somebody as well, even though it's a plain Jane hoodie.
No, it's not. I see your work logo.
Well, nonetheless, it's just a plain gray hoodie. That can be offensive to somebody. So with with the constant risk of anything that you do offending somebody,
Yeah, it's always
um,
there.
with that being always there, there's no societal conformity that we should be teaching, other than being appropriate in our actions and in our language.
Right.
Like, yes, don't go in public so scantily clad that you've got everybody in the building staring at you because you're wearing practically nothing.
And just so you all know, he doesn't get these big words from me. I think he reads a dictionary for bed. Okay.
Mhm.
Should standardized testing be abolished?
To some degree, yes, but in other areas, no. Um,
Is it not standardized testing that goes on now that can keep you back a grade?
yes,
All right, so that's where I have a problem. The whole thing of the standardized testing was to see where your school was, where that child was.
yes,
So you're going to have a child that doesn't conform to your expectations. So
hmm
now, even though he's done his work, he's passed, he's ready to go, because he can't pass this test, he can't go forward.
right.
That's
And
wrong.
and I like the concept of standardized testing, um, because it's basically, to me, a progress report. It shows as a teacher, it would show me how far this student has progressed in his learnings.
Hmm.
But what's happening now, is while one student didn't progress as far as another student, and they just barely missed the passing mark on that standardized test, they're being held back a grade because they didn't learn enough.
Right.
Well, no, they were only like 2 questions shy of passing that test. So they've got the knowledge. It just needs to be expanded upon, which
Right.
can be done in the future. You know, on top of that, there's so many things that I learned going through school that I've never used. I granted, yes, I always thought, going through school, why am I learning all this math and algebra and geometry and all this, because I'm never going to use it. Well, now I'm working in a place where I'm using math. So, but
I got
um,
fired the first day. No, I'm kidding.
um, but so to some degree, yes, standardized testing will show how far a student has progressed, but I don't think it should be a determining factor as to whether or not a student should be held back. Period.
I don't either. I think that's where you should look at it and say, he's strong here, but he needs more help here.
Exactly.
And if you want to punish the child, then you need to look at the teacher and ask the teacher, where did you fail him?
Exactly.
So it's a tug of war.
I mean, it's just one of those things that I think in the end actually hurts a lot of
Hmm.
students. Um,
Just like I'm sitting next to John, whoever over here, we score the exact same, but it's because our question, but we miss different questions
exactly.
because our mentality is not the same. Our brain power is not the same. I'm stronger here, he's stronger there. That's
Exactly.
all it is. So you figure out how to click those gears and make them stronger. That's where you're at on that one. All right. Should does- should all students have an after-school job or internship? No,
Not by any means.
no.
Should they experience different aspects of the workforce? Yes.
Short-term internships, I think, would be great, but I think they should take place within the school hours.
Yeah.
As far as a job, no. My kids were always told, in order for you to work after school, you have to have certain grades. Why is
Hmm.
that? At that point in time in their life, it was my job to make sure they were educated and ready to go into the world to do this work. So that's where that stands. Uh, should
I mean,
school? Should school? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm moving on too fast.
for me, like I kind of hold the same opinion as you. Um, exposure to the workforce, I think, is a great thing. Um, but again, should be done within school hours, or if it's not done within school hours, maybe it can be a couple of times a month they take an after school field trip.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be nice. I could agree to that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, but as far as the jobs, having an after school job, it's one thing entirely to have a paper route,
Hmm.
and deliver
Well,
newspapers,
we're not
which
going to talk about a
I,
paper route now, are we?
I think it's kind of going out of fashion. But it's one thing to do that, um, as a student, but it's something entirely different to have an after school job where you're going to work after
Hmm.
school for another 5 hours or whatever it
And
is.
if you're already struggling in school, there's at your homework while you're, you know, were their
Exactly. And now
parents?
you're up to midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning trying to finish
Right.
your homework and only
And
get
then you're
2 hours of
tired, so now your
into
brain's
school.
not functioning. We're their parents. They didn't ask to be brought into this world. Take care of them, support them, encourage them, let them grow.
Exactly.
Should school be in session year round? No.
Do what now?
Should school be in session year round, all year, nonstop? No. Maybe I'm spoiled. We had our summers. You guys had your summers. I think it's great for kids. That's the time of year where they can actually be outside playing, interacting.
Yes.
I think that in itself is a form of education because
Um,
you're out here socializing yourself.
while of course, I grew up with summers off from school, and even to this day, I greatly appreciate it. Um, but I can understand where having some form of a schooling through the summer can actually be helpful. Maybe tutoring a couple hours, through the week. A couple hours in the morning through the week, and then have weekends and the rest of the days off.
Do you know how
But
many teachers look forward to the summers?
right, that's another factor too.
I mean,
You
the
know,
teachers look forward to it. They're adults. Imagine these kids.
I mean that's one thing that a lot of people I don't think actually see is that um, I mean especially middle school into high school ages, right?
Hmm.
Um, that's when students tend to, at least in my opinion, tend to become more rambunctious, more um, obstinate, and create more of a scene in the classroom
Right.
because they're realizing themselves
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and they
So
could be outside. They could be playing basketball. They could have
yeah,
gotten that summer job. I mean,
yeah, and a lot of students, I think, at that age are like, well, I'm never going to use this, so why do I even need to be here? And with that kind of mentality, the teachers struggle to get them to sit down and do the coursework to get their education and graduate and everything like that. So uh, oftentimes teachers need that break. One, to kind of have that bit of a mental reprieve for the summer, and two, they've also got to figure out their lesson plans for the first quarter of the next school year.
yeah, they have to have all that done. Like I think a month or so before they walk back into that school.
Yeah,
And it's not like they just get to write it up, put it in their pocket. They gotta put that in there. Everybody's got to see.
it's got to be presented to the principal
It's
and
got to meet all
everything like
curriculum
that.
criterias. Yes.
And a lot of that's because um, again, we have societal standards for education that has to be met by each individual state, and in some instances, um, I don't know of any, but I wouldn't doubt it that some local communities and cities require a more advanced education than what the state requires.
And here's something. This might sound weird too, though. But what are we in school? Like 9 months out of the year, 8, 9 months. So
Yeah.
obviously, all these years, that was always satisfactory. So all of a sudden, you go to school year round. What does that mean? Your kid graduates in sixth grade, and then
No, I
because of their age, they sit around for another 6 years doing nothing.
I think I think what that entails, because there's some states that do require schooling year round.
Their
Um,
countries, yes.
yeah, and I think what it entails is shortened days, so they're still getting the same amount of education. It's just over a longer period of time.
I liked it when you guys had that time to sleep in, that get up, eat, go play, do whatever it was you were doing.
Yeah.
To me, I think it helped you guys find yourself, and I think it made you better students as well.
Hmm.
Okay, so should all high school athletes be drug tested? Yes. Why? You always have that one. And when you pick random, I don't know if anybody's ever noticed this. I've even noticed it in workplaces. When they do the random drug test, it always seems to be the ones that they know are clean.
Hmm.
So, yes, every last student should be drug tested. There should be some kind of punishment for anybody that can't pass it. Plain and simple.
Should it have to be that way? No, not by any means.
No, but I mean, it has been for years. And
But
nowadays, you have to.
right, I mean it's sickening that uh, kids are getting involved in um, uh, things like drugs and other nefarious activities.
And I mean, it's happening younger and younger every day.
Right. Um,
So,
and I mean that's it certainly impacts education as a whole, let alone sports. And I think the biggest issue probably in sports is uh, enhancement drugs, steroids,
steroids,
and
yes.
things of the like. Um, and in my opinion, um, even if it's just for steroids, if the students are tested for even just steroids, that's the probably the biggest thing, because you know in school you learn to you're supposed to learn to play fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's good sportsmanship to play on a fair playing field, right?
Mm-hmm.
So taking enhancement drugs like steroids, um, and everything like that gives you an unfair advantage over your opponent. You're not playing on an equal playing field now. Granted, real life situation, no, you're never going to be 100% fair playing ground.
Right.
But in I think what the school systems are trying to teach, and what we should teach our kids, period, anyway, is that we need to try to give our opponents a fair advantage. Whether they're stronger than us in some aspects or another or not. It's part of how I think I came to my way of thinking. That one, you treat everybody with as much respect as you can. Two, it teaches that while life is not fair, we can help each other by playing to each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Right. Okay, what about detention? Should it be abolished? Some of these words are weird. Should detention be abolished? I mean, what are we, political here or what?
See, yeah, I have a hard time with that one, because I know that detention has helped students in the past. Um,
Do you know, I went to school with a kid who intentionally would get detention. I still don't know why. I mean, even back then, I was scratching my head going, most people want to get out of the school and you want to stay here. I don't understand.
well, that's another thing too. In that case, it might have been that his life at home was not all that great,
And maybe in detention, he was getting a little one-on-one and.
and that's kind of where I have a hard time with it, because um, detention is a, in most cases, at least in the school system that I was in, if you did get detention, you were only there with maybe one or two other students. So whoever was overseeing the detention room was able to give some of that much needed one-on-one attention and education.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, because I managed to get detention once. I don't even know what I did. And the teacher that actually ran it, it wasn't one of those just sit here. It was, all right, I'm sure you got homework, you got this or that, get it out. And without making you feel stupid or anything, they were going around, what are you working on? Do you need some help with this? Are you okay? And
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Another thing that I do agree with detention on, at least in the higher grades, is teaching the children that there's uh, um, repercussions for wrongdoings.
Yes.
You're not. It shouldn't be seen as a punishment per se.
But your actions have consequences.
Exactly.
And if you never face those consequences, be it something as simple as detention, you're never going to get it right. You're never going to figure it out.
And that's probably where some of society kind of lacks today, is not being taught that there's consequences for actions.
Right.
I mean, how many kids have gotten caught shoplifting
Mm-hmm.
and just got a slap on the wrist?
Right.
I mean, that's not going to that all that's going to teach them is, oh well, I can keep doing this, and all I'm going to get is a slap on the wrist.
Right.
Where if they're disciplined in some way, whether it be they have to do so many hours of community service, or they have to work for that store to pay off whatever it was they stole, or something like that, that would teach them, okay, there is definitely a consequence to this action. I'll never
Right.
do it again.
I mean, you also have those that don't mind the consequences. So don't think it works on everybody. All right. Should all student loan debts be eliminated? I do think changes need to be made.
I don't think that education, further education, um, should be anywhere near as expensive as it is. I mean, there's some countries that have free university education.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to college 100% free to study whatever it is you want to study. And it promotes high school graduates
Mm-hmm.
to actually further their education and become doctors and lawyers and um, excellent employees in fields that we need.
Yes,
I mean,
but you know what? And this is going to be my fear. Right now, we have trade school, and of course,
mhm,
we'll more than likely always have trade school. I'm afraid those costs are going to go up. Right now, trade school is the way to go. It's cheaper,
yes,
faster. You get the same education.
yeah, for different areas of the workforce, yes. Um, but the other thing that I try to look at in that is that, um, at least here in the States, and I know in the UK, we are quite short-handed with doctors and nurses.
We were just
Um,
talking about that last night.
I mean, we've got an abundance of lawyers.
Well, you have to because everybody's too happy.
Right,
Oh,
but
you just look at me cross-eyed. I'm going to call my lawyer.
but we have a severe lacking in the medical profession. And maybe I think a lot of the issue with that is, at least for doctors, will say, not only do you have to have a 4-year degree um, from a regular college to get your prerequisites just to get into med school, and then you've got to go through at least a 2-year internship. So by the time, if you go into school right when you graduate to become a doctor, you're in school for
8 years.
basically another 8 years before you're a full-fledged doctor,
Correct.
right?
And
And
keep in
all
mind,
this
too,
time you're
schooling
accruing
continues
student
after-
debt,
Yes.
and doctors are getting paid what, $60,000-$70,000 a year, give or take, maybe. I don't know. I've not looked at it.
I'd say probably a little higher, but yeah,
With that, with no matter what the pay rate is, for doctors today, if they're going through 8 years of schooling basically, and they're spending $30,000 to $40,000 a year in some cases just to be able to get that education to be the doctor that they want to be, and they're not privileged to come from a wealthy family to pay for the schooling themselves. They're accruing all that student debt. How long is it going to take for them to pay off? So while I don't agree 100% with abolishing student loans, I don't think schooling for further education should be as expensive. I mean, the professors that are teaching these classes, they need to be able to earn a living too,
right.
and everything like that. And in all honesty, while so many of us think that the government has more money than they know what to do with,
Right.
it comes out of taxpayers' pockets.
Understood. So we're running close to running out of time today. I am gonna say this one. Homeschooling is better than traditional school is. At one time, I would have said absolutely not. They need socialization. They need this, 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 and this. Some parents aren't even equipped to homeschool.
No.
I would have never homeschooled my children. I struggled in school. What reason would I have to try and teach them my struggles? But Nowadays, though, when I hear, oh, a school shooting here or there, my heart sinks, and I say, if my kids are in school, I'd probably have them at home.
Now, I somewhat disagree with that. I do think that the socialization is a key factor in early childhood development. Um, so I think through a certain age, at least, they should go to a regular school, whether it be a private school, a public school, whatever. I don't care, but up through a certain age, just so that they've got that social development happening, they should
Because I
go
mean,
to
they do this. Well, we have this, we have that. Well, a lot of times when you go to these groups, and I've gone to one, you have a small selected, and basically they're all raised the same, so they think the same. They're not going to have as many issues. You let your child go to a school, they're going to see all different types of socialization. They're going to learn, oh, this is somebody I really shouldn't socialize with. Oh, this is somebody that, So it says a lot for your child, if they get to experience all that, simply because one day they're going to walk out into the real world and it's not going to be a pretty one for them.
right.
So
Now, I do believe that homeschooling has made major advances.
they have.
Um,
Absolutely. I've seen that.
a lot of the homeschooling programs actually aren't considered homeschooling
That I was
because
not aware of.
it's online education.
Oh, that is true. They
The
have done
parents
that.
the parents don't actually have to teach, and a lot of those programs have activities weekly, monthly, or whatever that um, if it's not required for the students to go, it's highly encouraged because they're understanding the need for that social ability to be able to grow socially with the um, peer group that you're growing up with.
Right.
I mean, if you're homeschooled, traditionally, you get books from whatever agency you're going through, and the parents are teaching. That's severe isolation um, through the schooling aspect, and some of these students, if they're anything like myself, um, if they were homeschooled right from the start, they probably would never make friends and be able to associate themselves with their peer group um, outside of the home. So they become a social hermit.
Right.
So while there are advances that have been made in homeschooling, um, and it's a great tool um, for parents to use. Um, I mean, there's more one-on-one education available there.
Hmm.
Uh, whether it's the parents educating their kids or it's an online public school, basically, they're able to get a little more one-on-one help
Right.
um, than they would in a traditional public school because most of the students are going to a traditional public school. So, um, that kind of opens the availability of the teachers of the online programs to have maybe 5 to 10 students in their classroom. Um, and in many cases, at least from what I can see, uh, is basically not only do they only have maybe 5 to 10 students, but it's actually really well set up, especially for um, the um, the older grades. Maybe 6th through 12th grade, more or less like a college education would be organized, and in that kind of respect, it sort of prepares them for the online college world. So, um, the other thing I think that kind of plays hand in hand with that is discipline.
Yes.
If they're not disciplined enough to maintain their schooling on their own, that requires the parents to constantly be there to draw them back into their schoolwork, which, as most everybody knows, is near impossible in today's day and age because, in most cases, both parents have to work if they're not a single parent.
Right.
So, um, as far as homeschooling goes, that has to be, I think, a case by case basis.
Understood. So we are out of time for today. Next week, if you want, we have a few more questions pertaining to schooling that we can handle. Uh, we also have some political issues. Please know, everybody that discusses politics is entitled to their own opinions. Anything that we come at you with, it's just a matter of getting you to think outside that box and bring more out. Anything I do as an educational purpose for myself because sometimes you don't always see the other side and nobody really speaks on it anymore. So, if Dennis here would like to eat dinner tonight, I need to go get busy. We're going to have some spaghetti and meatballs. And if my cousin Janice is listening, I hear your sausage just like Grandma's. So next time you make some, if I could just have a teaspoon to have that memory back, I'd be grateful. My grandma, I miss our Sunday gatherings. We always got together and it was pasta galore and everybody talking. Oh, I miss those days so bad.
Mm.
So bad. I had my great grandparents were wonderful. My grandparents were wonderful, and unfortunately, all that is fallen by the wayside. We don't do that stuff anymore. So, on that note, everybody have a good day. I will see you next week. Anything you want to discuss, please let us know, and we'll get you on here some way, shape, or form, or even just some of your topic and your view, and I'll share it for you if that's what you wish to do. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a good day, actually a good week. So, thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.